All right.
Just knocking them out, dude.
Here we go.
Knocking them.
2, 1. Welcome back to Get With The Programming, and this edition is all about the Rogue Invitational because we had some live competition for the first time in a long time. I am Chase Ingram.
I'm Captain America.
With Bill Grundler.
Wolverine.
And we're going to talk about the Rogue Invitational, the programming, what we thought about it, how we enjoyed watching it, what we thought the test was like, and just kind of talk about some news other than, some history. We're going to talk about some present day action. It was, I had the fortunate position of being able to call this event. Now, it wasn't exactly live in-person competition for those that were watching it. It was, I tell you what, it was, say what it was. It was every athlete was in their own gym, in their own country, with their own people helping them out around the world. And they were basically, it was like a giant fitness Zoom call. Is the best way I could describe it.
That's exactly what it was, man. Even from the spectator standpoint, that's exactly what it was. And I will say this: one of the comments that we've always gotten when we broadcast is, "Hey, how come you never have the camera on so and so?"
Exactly. Oh,
well,
God,
guess what? Man, everyone had every camera on everybody at some point, and you could actually see, like when they would do the widescreen and had all the athletes up there, you can see everyone. And then, depending on who you guys are talking about, or if you're able to get the camera to move, it would go to, whoever, Chandler Smith or to Tia or to Catherine or whoever. You could literally see every single athlete all the way through, and that was so cool. Pretty dang cool. And I honestly think that, the fact that was able to be put together like that, there's been a lot of really cool pivots with this whole, coronavirus thing. And I think that is something that can be very useful in the future, and that we're going to be able to see some really cool things.
And I'll be honest,
eyes like that.
The Rogue Invitational itself is one of the best sanctioned events in the world. And this is only the second year.
Yeah.
Because of what Rogue puts into it. Like
totally.
What more can you say about what they do for the sport, what they do in terms of how they run themselves as a company, and just like the level of the bar at which they set for them. But when they said they're going to pivot to this online competition, I had no idea, what that would look like, how they would navigate it, what the legitimacy of it would really be, and then, showing up on site and looking that, they sent out equipment kit to every athlete, so every piece of equipment being used is exactly the same. They showed them the layouts of what a competition box will look like, where their camera has to be. They flew out judges, right? Non-biased judges to make sure the standards were upheld. They had a technical operator on site to run the video feed and make sure they stayed on schedule. And the height of the pull-up bars had to be a certain way, and the distance from the pull-up rig had to be a certain distance, or from the wall. And there were so many details that they went through. I mean, this was a technological, and in terms of just like putting it all together, feat unlike anything I had ever done before. And, I was going to say, we just finished doing the 2012 recap of the CrossFit Games. We have come a long way from cell phone conference calls, standing alone in the mountainous hills of Southern California to what this was. So, before we even get into the competition, what Rogue pulled off and what the athletes pulled off too, because this took a lot of not patience, but this took a lot of faith and not sacrifice, but like the athletes really just poured themselves into this event to make it happen, because they're all over the world. And they're trying to pick this time window that works for everybody, but it didn't work for everybody. You know, Cara Saunders, bless her heart, did this entire competition from like midnight to 4 a.m.
Yeah.
And she still kicked some serious ass. So
the only thing I will say about that, well, I mean, one, obviously she is a badass. The fact you could do that. Maybe the plus is that she's a new mom, and so her sleep cycle is all screwed up anyway. So
like,
that's the only way. No, that's the only way it would have worked. I mean, you got a young kid. I mean, like you're with your daughter. You know how the sleep is not normal anymore.
I was up at 2 o'clock this morning feeding the baby.
There you go.
I had to wake up at 4 o'clock and go coach the 5 a.m. class at the gym. So
there
you
go.
Right.
So I mean, maybe that played in her favor, but it was. I think. I think on the athletes side, athletes are going to do what athletes do. And if you say 3, 2, 1, go, they're going to go. I think the fact that I honestly believe that the way that it worked was because of how we are currently in our state of the world. And
yes.
And I think that, everyone has been Zooming, everyone has been training that way. And so everyone automatically went to okay, this is going to be all right. And everyone stepped into it. What I loved was that if it was a regular event, you would have planned the logistics of, okay, where are the pull-ups bars going to be? Where are the weights going to be? Where are the transitions going to be? So you would have had all that.
Yes.
The fact that they set that up for everyone going out. I mean, I've talked about that for years. If you have to video your stuff for the open, why is it that this person can put their rower right underneath the pull-up rig and this one doesn't do that? It should be told. You should be told, here's exactly what it looks like. And the fact that they did that, I think, was awesome. And the fact that everyone fell into place with that, I think, is awesome. So, it was a different event that really was not that different. And I mean, honestly, I got to hand it to them. I mean, they did a great job of putting it together and making it as true to life, lane next to lane competition as they could make it. And it was cool. It was
really cool. And, I got to obviously we couldn't be there, but I got to call this with Sean Woodland and Margot Alvarez. And I think it was like halfway through Saturday. I had forgotten we were not in a live competition setting, that there were 40 athletes around the world separated completely. Like, they couldn't have music playing. They couldn't have coaches yelling at them. They couldn't have fans cheering for them. And it was just total dead silence. So now think about that. You're isolated in your little box, in your little bubble, with nothing but you and the workout, knowing you're competing against 10 or 20 other people in your division around the world at the same time. It was crazy. And I think you're exactly right. Based off what we've been going through for now 3 solid months, this really wasn't that hard of a thing to kind of wrap our head around and get behind.
Right.
I think had this have happened in, say, like early April, we wouldn't have been on board. Like, this sucks. I miss live competition. However, at this point, we were so starved. I mean, I was watching cornhole tournaments on ESPN as my vision of sports. Or, what squirrel was going to get that piece of fruit hanging in that tree in my backyard? Like, these are the terrible sports. Like, what is my son going to trip over today? Like, those are the bets that I was placing on because of how much I had missed sports. So, let's get into the events.
Yeah.
And this was the 2020 Rogue Invitational. Chris Spieler and Josh Bridges, who I believe had a hand in last year's as well, were the 2 athletes that programmed for this competition. And event 1 was a twisted version of Fran. So it was 21, 15, 9 thrusters and burpee pull-ups, but the weight increased. And it was 135 and 95, 185 and 125, and then 205 and 145. And that got real heavy real quick. But, when I looked at it, I was like, we were trying to guess what the times were going to be. I was like, oh, is it going to be fast to me, like sub 5 minutes or 4 minutes? And then you saw the first heat go and you're like, oh,
yeah,
this is real hard. And what I liked was it was a strength event. but it made the pull-ups matter because of that addition of the burpee.
Yeah.
I think it was a straight pull-ups. The pull-ups would have been irrelevant, and it would have just been a thruster event. It was still a thruster event in particular, especially a strong athlete thruster, but the burpee pull-ups had a more dynamic effect on your ability to do the thruster because of that burpee.
Yeah. I like the setup. And I mean, you know, this is no shot on Josh and Chris, but if you look at what those athletes would excel in, the natural tendency would be that you're going to kind of program the things that you are kind of decent at. I mean, that's just kind of
right. We tend to like
subconsciously kind of goes that way.
Right.
Both of them are strong athletes for who they are.
Mm-hmm.
But you look at this right out of the gate, and it's like, okay, well, that's not a short guy,
right,
small guy, light guy event at all. Like, wow, this is getting after it, right out of the gate. And I really like with the setup. I love the fact that the weight goes up for the thrusters. I think that is a perfect way to start this off. Mm-hmm. Burpee pull-ups, I honestly, I like them. I mean, I remember the old G.I. Jane, Greg Amundsen 100 burpee pull-ups for time. Like, I remember that. And what I thought was interesting was the only person, at least that when I was kind of in and out watching the stream, the only person that I saw switch their hands was Tia.
Yes.
And you want to know how I do burpee pull-ups? I never do them any other way now. I only go reverse grip.
Yes.
So that way I don't have to look up to the bar. My hands just like off the ground, jump straight up into it, right to a hook grip. Plus, it's an easier pull from that top position. So I was surprised that we didn't see that. But how often do people do burpee pull-ups? I don't think that's kind of an OG movement, not so much a new school movement. But when you have two OGs that are programming, you're going to see something like that. So I thought event 1 out of the gate was cool.
Really cool.
I loved it.
So on the men's side, Colton Mertens. Now, I didn't know a lot about him coming in, but he made a pretty big name for himself this weekend.
Yeah.
Gets a time of 7:01 on the men's side. Now, here was the coolest thing I thought about all weekend, and it shows how deep the top athlete field is in the CrossFit Games. They had no idea who was doing what. They had no idea who did what in the first heat or second heat. Burns is 7:01. Bellner 7:10. And then you got a 7:20, 28, 29, 29, 30. Like, how close it all was, and them having no idea where each other were. And like, that was kind of neat because you're calling it or you're watching it and you're like cheering for these guys, like, go, but like they don't even they don't hear you, but they don't know each other are there. So it was really amazing to see how close it was. So Mertens wins on the men's side. On the women's side, Tia crushed everybody. She was 7:14. Next closest was 7:53. Next closest was 7:32. Sorry, that was Jamie Simmons.
Yeah.
And then Cara Saunders. But it was still close there, not quite as tight as the men's field. But, let's see, 4th, 5th, 6th, 51, 53, 56.
Yep.
Now imagine what that would look like, when they're on the field together. So that was pretty cool. So that was event 1.
Yeah.
And then event 2 was the nastiest.
Snatches and more snatches.
The snatchiest.
The snatchiest event.
I didn't really think about coming in. And then afterwards, I was like, no, I'm never doing that one. Especially when we talk about how it went on the women's side. Yeah. So here's how the event set up. It was 2 scores. It was a part A and a part B. 50 power snatches for time at 95 and 65. They had a 4-minute cap. And then at the 5-minute mark, it was a death by, which is an EMOM style movement. So at the 5th minute, so if they did it in 2 minutes, they got to rest 3 minutes until minute 5. They started with 11 reps. And then minute 2 would be 12 reps, 13, 14, so on and so forth until there was a last person standing, which is what it was called. I mean, we call it death by, but it's the same concept, same thing. And going into it, this is where these athletes have taken. I was like, okay, how would you break up those 50 power snatches? And then I saw the first heat of women go, and I go, the answer is 0.
Right.
Because they didn't put the bar down and they were doing the first 50 in like 1 minute and 30 seconds. And I was not prepared to witness that and realize how far I have fallen as a CrossFit athlete, watching these women take the floor and just absolutely rush it.
Yeah.
And so the women went first, and Sam Briggs was in heat 1. And in that event, in part 2A, she had a decent time. It wasn't the fastest part A, but being it just an event, like the big part of the event was the death by part. So she's in heat 1. Again, these athletes have no idea what's going on. She does.
Were they scored on the first part?
They were.
50?
Yeah.
They were.
It just wasn't on the live scoring when they were there. And on the leaderboard, it shows what their time was.
Yeah. I
But
see
it
the
was
time.
it was a scored event. But how it's set up is that just by reps is how they put it on the leaderboard. So Sam, everybody starts going. People start petering out about minute. Let's see, the running clock. So about minute 10 or 12, and then you have your big hitters that you thought would do well, like Brooke Wells, Sarah Sidney's daughter, and Sam Briggs. They're still rolling, and then they drop out like minute 15, and Sam is still going. And we're looking at the score because we have the scoring hat. And she's getting into these reps, and she's getting like over 200. She's trying to get into her last one. And what we thought, we didn't think this was humanly possible, that we thought that they were adding on to the first 50. It's like, okay, she's done 150 power snatches. But that was incorrect. Sam finished with 211 power snatches.
Yeah.
After doing 50 for time. The next closest was Sarah Simon's daughter at 175. She nearly did 40 more snatches than the second place person. And honest to God, like this was one of the most impressive things I've seen anyone do in CrossFit.
Yeah.
And it was just a bunch of power snatches. And after a while, you were like, you're just looking at it, you're like, all you could think about was day 2 soreness. Oh,
yeah,
unbelievable.
You made the comment. I saw like your Instagrams and stuff like that were making that comment, and that's the thing is that's Samantha Briggs, man. She has a pain threshold that is not remotely in the realm of elite level athletes. Like she's so past that, and what's so interesting when you watch her is she never looks like she's in pain. She's always smiling. It's like, and the only thing I can really, I was asked like who my favorite CrossFit athletes were on the men's side and the women's side. And one of the things that I said, I said that I like different athletes for different things. And with Sam, it's like she's not competing, she's just enjoying. Whether it's painful, like she loves the fact that like it hurts so good kind of a thing. Like she just let's just keep on going because I'm feeling it, I'm loving it, I'm enjoying this, I'm seeing what I can do, I'm testing myself. I mean, we've seen her not win, she's smiling. We've seen her win, she's smiling. We see her when she's training, she's smiling. We see her when she's in competition, she's smiling. I just think that she just enjoys it so much. And whenever she gets an event that she can do well in, she just goes for it. And that, it's just amazing. It's just amazing to watch what she can do. It's unreal.
It was for me, unbelievable.
But for me, when I'm looking at this event, I'm thinking, okay, upwards of 200, and I'm talking this is across the board because if everyone's hitting like the 150, whether you're on the guy's side or the girl,
for the women was about one. I mean, when you throw Sam in there, that kind of skews the average a little bit, but probably between, I'll say 150 was your mid range for the women, and on the men, click over. The men were much less, is maybe
much less. Like,
maybe 100.
So that's that plus the 50 that you had to do originally. I mean, that's a lot. That's a lot of reps. Yes. A lot of reps, and I think that it's interesting because what you're going to end up seeing is And we didn't see really pretty snatch form while we were doing that. I
It's
mean,
just
you're
grip it and rip it. It's like kettlebell swings to the barbell.
Exactly. And that's one of the things that it's interesting to see how that would play out. Like everyone knows, all right, let's do a high volume event. Okay, cool. High volume clean and jerks would look different. I mean, you're still going to see probably bent over a lot more because the weight's not real heavy, and these guys are all very strong. But it's what I would be looking at, or what I am looking at when I see something like this is, okay, where are they going to go? What kind of things are their bodies going to do to make this work? Because they're athletes, they're racing, and you always want to try to find that shortcut. So where's the line? And it was really interesting to see. And again, based on who is programming, I think that's an interesting viewpoint of how that's going to be set up there. If it's you like events where it's rowing, burpees, and whatever, because it's like, hey, you just who can sit in that pain cave? You're good at that stuff. So you automatically can start designing what that's going to look like in your head. Here we have Josh and Chris, shorter range of motion movement athletes. So if you have a shorter range of motion, you're going to have the
I would say initial advantage. Maybe
the advantage again, and that doesn't mean that you can't be tall and not do well at this. It just means that you have the mechanical advantage set up, to your point. So it's interesting to think like, okay, what were they seeing it looking like? What would that be doing? Because when I'm looking at this, and I'm me and you were taller athletes, it's like, low back, crushed. And thank you. There's day one, and now I need to have Theragun. I need massage. I need whatever to get my low back back into back into place. But
I mean, it was brutal. But I like how they get outside of their own not prejudice, but like biasness in terms of because you're right. Like the way I would program could easily be shown. It's just the things that I like to do.
Yeah,
not in the way I program. I try really hard not to do that, but. It is really hard, but it's nice to have someone to bounce that off of, and so it's good between Josh and Chris. But I did not expect to see this volume. It was more like on the men's side. It was about kind of what I expected, but the women have gotten so good, and so strong that 65 was. That changed everything because like I said, the men average probably less. You have your lowest as 48, but I think that was maybe went out too hard, or just didn't want to do it. But again, remember they're by themselves. It is really hard to self motivate to begin with. In a death by format, this EMOM adding power snatches is such a total mind F.
Yeah,
alone. No music, no coaching, nothing. No idea where your competitors are.
No, I think that's super crazy. And one thing I just thought of now, it's what piece of equipment do we all use that we rarely, because it's so hard to judge, see in competition? And just like what you said, it's that kettlebell. So you said it's basically like a kettlebell but with a barbell. Maybe I like the fact that we have a way to test it that way. It's lightish weight. We can go high volume, and we can kind of test that. And that's exactly what was able to happen on this. So I like what it was. And you're right. The sidestep of not being able to base what you're doing next to the guy next to you, you just having to kind of close your eyes and go for it. That's a very interesting test, even though it's not really listed on paper anywhere. But I thought it was unique in the fact that it was single movement, high volume. Crazy test. I liked it. Yeah.
And like I said, I didn't think so until until the women went. I was like, oh gosh.
Yeah.
Okay, so they had two scores. Part A was the 50 for time. On the men's side, I believe it was Chandler Smith for the part A, and then Patrick Vellner in part B with 131 reps. So Pat wins on the men's side with 131. On the women's side, it was Tia Toomey. Her time was 122. So almost 2 seconds faster than Chandler. And then Sam Briggs is 211. Like,
Thanks for coming.
Unbelievable. So that was event 2. There's still one more event to go. I would have collapsed into a pile of my own self-pity after that. And event 3 was 250 double unders with a heavy rope, heavy cabled and heavy handled, into 2 rounds of 60 toes to bar and a 30 cal bike for the men, but a 24 cal bike on the Rogue Echo bike for the women. And looking at it, I was just thinking grip, shoulders, and that's a lot of toes to bar.
Yeah.
And for I have this weird engineering, symmetrical, everything has to be OCD, perfectly format brain. So when I look at just the numbers, I love the event and the movements that they had and how the test unfolded. But I was like, I would have liked to see 250 and actually on the bike side, the only thing I would have liked to have seen test-wise was I do think this was a really just a straight toes to bar event.
Totally.
The double under got hard, but if you had the skill set, you were okay. If you didn't, you were screwed, and that's on you.
Yeah.
It's not really a fitness related. It's kind of a skills related. Although with the heavy rope, I mean, it took them almost 4 minutes to get through this. And they were working their butts off. So it was fitness related in an extent. But once you got to the rig, 60 toes to bar for 2 rounds with that short amount of bike in between, it was just a toe to bar event. Personally, I would have liked to see more bike, but I'm a bigger guy and I'm better at the bike. So I'm more looking at it from my own biasness, is that 60 toes to bar isn't good for me and a 30 cal bike doesn't help me.
Right.
But if it was 50 and 50, I think it would have been a cool, more of a balance. But again, that's my weird brain that I like to see that, because, okay, you have that skill with the heavy rope, and then you have the toes to bar guys, and you have the bike guys.
Right.
And then the fittest guys can do both.
Right.
And that's kind of where my brain went looking at it. I have no problem with the event, but I would have liked to see more balance, because I don't like toes to bar and I like biking.
Well, and I think when I look at this, especially with the heavy rope, you're looking at grip, you're looking at shoulders and the tension that you have to be under for the 250 double unders. That does tax your arms, and so that's going to take out some of the toe to bar work if you're good at toes to bar.
And they already smoked coming in. Remember what they just went through, right?
Yeah, totally. Geez, then I didn't. Yeah, and you just did whatever 150 or 200 snatches. So
or 250 if you're Sam.
What grip? What grip?
Exactly.
I agree. I think that the event itself is cool.
Yeah.
I like how it's set up.
Good challenge.
I could see the calories being higher. The way these athletes are nowadays, like if you had this in a regular gym setting, or even
like
a local
throwdown workout.
Yeah, or a local throwdown type of thing. I could see that, because it takes general people or general athletes, even decent athletes, a little bit longer to get those calories on the bike like that. It takes them a little bit longer. So these guys, I mean, they make 30 calories even when they're tired, like 30 seconds every single. So it's like no reprieve, It's like
they're whistling.
They just kind of get going, gring, 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 as they get going, kind of taking a quick breath before they get back onto the toe to bar. But you're right, it is the way it's set up. It is a toe to bar event completely. They could have gone higher on the calorie bike. I mean, again, it is what it is.
Right.
It still was fun to watch. I still think it was a good event. But sitting back afterwards and seeing how people handled it, you could have easily gone 50 and 50. And if taking 10 toes to bar off that, I don't think that shorts the athletes that are good with the toe to bar.
No,
I mean, it's still 100.
It almost makes them better.
Yeah, totally. Because they
can break it up less.
They could break it up less, and they could probably look to that and be like, all right, I can actually take a bigger chunk of the toe to bar, because I'm only doing 100. I'm not doing 120. So I agree with that. 50 and 50 would have been fun.
Yeah.
I think
Here's
that would
my
have been
stupid
good.
math brain. It's because I look at the numbers, and this is a weird rut I always put myself into. But if I had 200 double unders, 50 toes to bar and 50 cal bikes, that'd be 200 reps and 200 reps. And it'd been nice symmetry. And then I wouldn't have to like turn the doorknob 50 times the wrong way because my OCD just got triggered, right?
Oh man. You know what? that's,
but again, that has nothing to do with the programming. That is just my problem.
No, well, I think that, if you look at old school programming, I mean, that's kind of how it was. There, Pat Sherwood used to talk about this all the time. Like there's a look to the setup, and I look at it that way too. I always like my numbers to look a certain way.
Yeah.
Does that make it good or bad? No, it doesn't make it good or bad necessarily, but it's a, me and you have talked about when we geek out on this stuff, every event or every workout that we put together is this little ball of clay that we are building into this cool little sculpture. So we want the wings of our little angel that we're building to look a certain way, not like, and they're just kind of on there.
Exactly.
Like to us, that is, I don't like to call it OCD because that makes me sound like I have an issue or a problem. I like to call it as our artistry.
Our artistry. And it's a lot easier to paint that picture after you've seen 40 of the fittest people in the world execute.
Oh gosh. Yeah, totally. But that was a good one. That's an ugly one.
Yeah, that was rough. And so let's think about, we say it's a high volume toes to bar and toes to bar event. Well, we just came off a high volume, low weighted barbell. So there's the symmetry and the balance actually between the two events and coming off the first one. So, it does has its place. Again, the event was fun to watch. It was a really tough event. The Haley Adams won it.
Insane.
Which was awesome to watch. So she takes Tia down. I don't know if that's the first time she's ever beat her head to head across the pond. Not across the pond. I think Tia was in the States somewhere. And the men's side, this was the coolest part, was that your top 4 guys in the heat all got on the bike at like the exact same time. And I think it might have been heat, I want to say it was heat 1. But you had 4 guys basically all get on the bike for the last 30 cals at the exact same time. And again, as one of those time frames that was so cool to see is that there was very little separation across the board. Pat Vellner crushed everybody.
Yeah.
All right, so let's remove him as he crushed it. He wins event 3. But then you have Hepner, Alexander Caron, Nicholas Joyal, Ben Smith. You got time frame 11, 18, 24, 29, 31, 39. Like that for a last bike and things that it was cool to see how close they were and not ever being in the same floor together. So that was the end of day 1. We look back, we had a classic CrossFit workout, some heavy weight, so a good test of strength and capacity. Balance between the 2 movements, between burpee pull-ups and thrusters. Kind of a 2-part lifting move and a 2-part gymnastics move. High volume, lightweight weightlifting, and then high volume gymnastics with the rope and the bike in the air. That's monostructural. So we go into day 2, to which I was like, how is anybody going to be able to stand up out of bed, let alone start with a max clean and jerk liftoff to start the morning? But to start the event, for event number 4, is they had a tiebreaker, which was really cool. And it was 7 clean and jerks. They could power it. 255 and 165 was the tiebreaker to where they would go into this liftoff. And what basically it was is you started at a certain weight, and then the men would go up 10 pounds, and the women would go up 5 pounds, essentially every 4 minutes, but they had a minute to get the lift in with a 3-minute break in between. Men start at 290, women start at 195. This was really fun to watch because you started with, as we said, is all the athletes were on screen at the exact same time.
Yeah.
So, you could pick who you wanted to see and follow your favorite athlete or your best friend, and no matter how good they were doing. Which, you were talking about earlier, people always write us like, why are you always showing the people in the lead and not this person? To which I always respond quickly.
Because they're in the lead.
Tell them to do better. There's only one problem, Happy. You're not any good. I don't say that. I might think it, but it's like, I'm sorry we weren't talking about your cousin who is in last place currently in the heat. My bad. Don't worry, we will before we hit the time cap. This will be the last one going. Which is funny because I was that guy a few times in my career, so I get it. So the lift off, it was really cool. The men, they put up some weight. Chandler Smith, PRs. Think about PRing. You start at 290 and then you go up 10 pounds every essentially 4 minutes. And, we're not going to beat a dead horse because Coach Bergner did that plenty during the broadcast about Chandler's technique.
Yeah.
But in terms of just a display of raw power and strength, I don't think I've ever seen someone as just powerful as Chandler Smith. Like I've seen a Sam Dancer like 600 plus pound deadlift at the games, but it was amazing.
It's different.
To do that with that like raw, unrefined technique, almost like you're battling yourself as well as the weight of the bar, and to still get 360.
Yeah, watching Sam, or even if you watch like the strongman stuff when people are deadlifting, it looks cool. I mean, it looks amazing that they can rip this weight off the ground and stand up with it, and I get it. But I've seen, and this is not a shot on Sam because I know that Sam he's just a powerful dude all the way around. But there is a big athletic difference between picking a weight up off the ground and that's it, and picking a weight up off the ground and putting it up over your head.
Yeah,
totally different deal.
For sure.
So when you see that, especially when you understand what the lift is supposed to look like and the efficiencies you need to have to move that much weight around, and the efficiencies aren't there, and it's manhandled up and over your head. I mean, that's
manhandled,
pressed to it, 360 pounds, pressed over your head.
Oh my gosh.
Not jerked over your head, pressed over your head. And, I was lucky enough, I was walking my dog at the time when I was watching that. I'm like, what the? Dude, out loud. That's what I'm saying as I'm watching it on my phone, walking my Sam dog, down the road. It was insane. So when we talk about, like, I love the way the tie break was set up. I think that was super cool.
And it mattered
to be able to have that to start rather than what we've seen like on the clean and jerks where we had to do the deadlifts and things before, like in the games, you had to finish it that way. Now you weren't gaming your tie break based on where you thought you were going to finish.
Right.
You went all out on your tie break because you were fresh-ish.
Right.
It was day 2. So you had that opportunity to get as many as you could, and then you went into the actual part. So it does 2 things. One, it gives you a really good tie break, plus it's a great race and a great way to watch it. So I think that was really cool to have for everyone to see how everyone was moving. But then being able to go into seeing the athletes as they move through those weights and who's getting it and who's not getting it. And even like the way, you have to have that based on what we had the day before. You have to have something heavy.
Oh yes.
And
when you only have 6 events, it's hard to do. It's not 15 events like the CrossFit Games.
Exactly. And so you have to have something heavy. And I think it was a great way to showcase strength, like top end strength. I mean, we saw some strength with the heavy thrusters on the first day, but that top end strength. And I'm not a fan myself because I'm not very good at the 1 rep max stuff. I like the repping it out. So I like the way they built that tie break 255 clean and jerks. Like, okay, like that for 7 reps, like that's
touch and go.
Exactly. That's a great test to show here's some top end strength for reps.
Yep. Some speed and power.
And that's one of the things that I think that Josh, one of the things that I always liked about Josh Bridges was, and he said this back when he was, even like in the early day of the CrossFit Games when he was competing in 2012, 2013 and stuff, he's like, I won't beat anyone on a 1 rep max, but I will go 90% 1 rep max head to head with anybody. And that, I think, I've always really liked that. So I like that he has that in here because I agree with that as a strength marker. Let's see how fast you can do 255 for 7 reps. And we'll use that and we'll make that important. Then of course, you have to have the 1 rep that was in there. And so I think that's good. You have in a 6 rep event competition, you have to have one that's going to showcase some ultimate strength, whether it's 1 or 3 or whatever. But I think that was a really good way to start that second day off for sure.
It was really fun to watch. And even more fun was the women's side
Yeah.
because the showdown between Amanda Barnhart, Laurel Horvath, and Tia Toomey.
Oh man. Yeah.
Like, Barnhart made all those cleans look effortless.
Yep.
But then as it got heavy, her technical flaws showed up in the jerk. Laurel Horvath just kind of hit her max weight.
Yeah.
I think she might have been close to PRing. And then Tia Toomey. My goodness.
Well, she's an Olympian for a reason.
But every weight that got heavier, because there's one of those middle ground, I would say those 80% weights that she hit. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then she hit 260, best lift she had yet. 265, best one she had yet. Her 270 looked like she could have done 285.
Yeah.
That was her easiest and best lift. Now, she had a little bit of angst going into that one.
Uh-huh.
A good rage goes a long way in some heavy lifting, as testament to her just roar afterwards, which made me cower behind a desk in a position that we weren't even in the same room in. But that's what it was. And so Tia wins at 270. Again, dominates the event. Chandler wins on the men's side. The funniest part of that entire call was getting Coach B on and him totally ripping me for saying catch the bar, which I know better. But he got, usually it's someone just puts it in the comments. No one actually gets on actual broadcast and goes, hey, idiot, it's receive the bar, which I was so embarrassed. And, I was like, all right, I'm just going to sit here and take it because you're 100% correct.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was funny. And we had a good time. And it was really cool to have Coach B on and go through. Sometimes it felt like you're kind of FaceTiming your grandparents and they're not knowing how to flip the screen on their tablet. Every once in a while, you just couldn't see what's happening. But again, the technological challenges of having someone come in as the third broadcaster from their home, not being even in the same room. So I thought that was really cool. I always love having him on, especially for the list because, we were sitting there and, our producer's like, hey, say something. I was like, no, I don't want to comment on this. Coach, he kind of scared me from broadcasting after I said catch instead of receive. And I was too afraid to speak up after that. But that was event 4 that started things off. I liked having the strength on the beginning of the day to kind of almost loosen everybody up for the rest. I think it would have been a much rougher if they did it later in the day. So event number 5, I love because it's long and I like chippers and there's no barbell. And it was a 40 cal row, 30 D-ball squat cleans at 170, 20 box step overs with the ball, 40 strict handstand push-ups, and then you went back up the line, 20 step overs, 30 squat cleans, and 40 cal row. Just a great event. A great test of grit. We did a classic CrossFit event 1, high volume work capacity event 2, high volume gymnastic capacity event 3, pure strength test event 4, and then just how gritty, how tough, how much work capacity do you have? And that's what this was, because there was nothing hard about this other than your ability to just keep going.
Yeah, the ones that are not difficult enough but are long, I think that there's a very unique test to that, and it's just like you said, it's the grit that goes into that. It's you don't need to stop, so can you just keep yourself going, and can you ride that line to where a lot of times we talk about in a race, it isn't necessarily who does the reps faster. It's who has the least amount of reps or the least amount of rest. Like the old school Rich Froning way, if you were to have him race someone for 10 reps, he probably wouldn't win. It's like the Usain Bolt. It's like he's not going to win the first 50 meters, but he'll always finish out ahead of everyone because there's less rest. Or Rich will do that. There's less rest all the way across, and every rep is relaxed and controlled. That's what this is. I mean, the longer time frame you have, I challenge anyone to videotape themselves doing an event like this and record on one clock how much time they're actually working and how much time they're actually not moving.
Yes,
and really kind of compare that, because that's a very important way to look at how am I handling this. And that's what I think happened here was, we have a 20-minute cap. The top athletes were getting done in 3 minutes, 14 minutes, around there between the men and the women. That is, it's impressive how they just don't stop. And
Yes.
BKG, that's what he does. He's very good at those types of events. He just does not stop. He's not the fastest on any one part, but his amount of rest is so short. Super cool to watch. And I think that, again, just like you have to have a strength event in a competition to test for fitness, you have to have an event like this as well, because it's the flip side of that. And I don't think it needs to always be a run. Like a lot of times people will say, non-CrossFitters anyway, well, when do you do the running stuff, or when can I run?
Right.
You don't need to run. Like running
Where's the cardio?
Yeah, this is that. This is exactly that. And you're using so much of your body to do that. It's it's programmed awesome. The pyramid styles ones I think are very, the pyramid style chippers I really like as well.
Yes.
I always like knowing I'm coming right back down the hill.
Yes.
So it was cool. It's a very, and I like the numbers too. I like the way the numbers are set up. I like the box step over with the D ball. Like I think that's a
clean.
That's a cool twist.
That.
Yeah.
That little twist too.
Totally.
So that was a fun event. Really
I like
it. Yeah, you said BKG, Bjorkman Carl Goodmanson, wins for the men. Time of 13:55, a minute faster than Patrick Bellner.
Yeah.
But, all Pat was doing is taking first and seconds all weekend. It was crazy. On the women's side, Sarah Sigmund's daughter.
Yep.
Crushed that. And especially the second half. Because you're like, oh, how's she doing? And then she just put it down on the second half of that. Tia was 14:05, so almost a minute faster than Tia. Tia picks up a second place. So that was event 5. And now we have one more. And there's 6 events. And the last one, classic CrossFit. 21:15.9, deadlifts at 275 and 185, and overhead squats at 155 and 105.
Loved it.
And I actually like this a lot, because even though they're deadlifts, 275 is a weight I can handle.
It's a doable.
And I like overhead squats a lot.
Yeah.
Not to saying I think an event is good because I like it, but there's rarely a time where I see a deadlift workout that I enjoy.
Yeah.
And then the weight, we're just waiting for those athletes to just send it.
Yeah.
Start to finish.
And they could. Go unbroken. And I think, when you look at all of the other events, that was a needed event. It was something that we need to get these athletes moving. We need to have something that is heavy enough for this level of athlete to be able to get after it. There shouldn't be, and I remember watching when I was watching it, and you were talking about okay, I still think you could break up the first set of deadlifts, even though you don't need to break up the first set of deadlifts. You were exactly spot on about playing to your strength, whatever the 2 movements were. But if you look at the athletes that were winning and that were up at the top, it was a matter of, okay, this has to be fast. So you need to get after it. And if you are going to break it up, I really think the only place you really could break it up would be the deadlifts, because you break it up, you let go, but you can just bend right back down. The overhead squat, you're going to have to snatch it, and you don't. You got to lock in. You got to get them unbroken. But it was, if you look at all the events across the weekend, you had to have something that was going to push them to where they could kind of hold on for that short amount of time. And the movements, the way that they were put together were great. The weight I thought that they had was completely appropriate. Because I think if it was a general competition or even a regional competition, you would see probably more like a 225, 155 and a 135, 95. for the deadlifts and the overhead
I
squats.
could see even less on the overhead squats, 225 and 135. Just shed a plate and go. Like
totally. Oh, yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah. What did I say?
150. You kept the weight the same in the overhead squats.
Oh, no.
Exactly,
I meant the 135 and 95. I was
Yeah.
trying to do the math quickly when I'm looking at the numbers there. The intent of that event, I think was they hit it spot on with the weights. It was
just a little bit extra
awesome.
weight.
Yeah,
that you couldn't back off your pace.
Of all events, this was my favorite event of the entire weekend. I like this one the best. Yeah.
I mean, this was fun to watch. It was great to end on because, again, it wasn't. And this is kind of my overall view of the program, which we'll get into a second. It wasn't cute. Some people try to get cute or
gimmicky,
tricky or sexy.
Yeah.
And it was just like, dude, just go to work.
Yeah.
And you're going to have to work way harder than you want to.
Yeah.
Because if it was at 225, 135, everybody can do that unbroken. Now it's how fast you can go. With that 275 and 155 and on the 185 and 105, that is heavier than you want to go with the intensity that you need to go. And that forced the athletes to make a decision rather than just say, go fast. Because it's really easy to just say, go fast.
Totally.
Like, okay, I'll go fast. I'll work really hard. Now it's like, go fast if you want to. And so on the men's side, Colton Mertens does the old ice cream sandwich that he wins event 1 and he wins event number 6, 242. I think he only broke, I think it was in his last set of deadlifts, maybe once or twice in the set of 9. But he went for it from the beginning. 242. Noah Olsen gets second.
Yeah.
330. Vellner 6 seconds behind him. On the women's side, I mean, Tia Toomey just destroys everyone again.
Dude, I'll tell you what right now. Like, there is no one that is going to touch her for a while.
Yeah. For as long as she wants to. And, I think I heard Sean and Tommy saying this in their last when they were talking about this, is that, we used to say Matt Fraser is going to be as good as he wants to for as long as he wants to. And even though Tia's already won 3 in a row, I feel like she's just turning the corner of her greatness.
100%. Yeah, she
is
from on the outside looking in, she is just figuring out and getting comfortable with the athlete that she is. Like, she's still hungry. She still attacks. She still loves what she's doing. She still has all that fire. She still has all the drive. The way she does what she does, you would not think that she hasn't already won 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
You would think that she would be like 3rd, 2nd, maybe a 1st in there. Like, she's still on the hunt. That is a dangerous athlete to have out there with the confidence that she has and the ability that she has and where she is, and she has lost 0 drive, at least from the outside looking in.
It just seems like
no one's going to touch her.
I think the big difference that the takeaway from Tia this weekend was she was good when she started, 2 seconds. Then she got really good, really fit, really fast, really competitive.
Yeah.
Now what I see is her deliberately taking it to the competition.
Oh, dude.
Not just being good at what you do and staying in your lane, but like outwardly, like dominating people, like almost getting into, not physically getting into their lanes or into their spaces, but she is just like taking it to people. She's not
leaving any question about who you want to think is the best.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't want anyone to think I have a chance. It's like,
you
will be battling for a second. And that is a very unique attitude, I think, from old school CrossFit to new school CrossFit. I mean, I get asked, all the time about, who's better between Rich and Matt.
Yeah.
If you put them in their heyday, I think it would be an amazing race, all that kind of stuff. The difference between Matt that I see between Matt and Rich is Rich goes when he needs to go. Matt always goes.
Yeah.
Matt always goes. He will race whether he needs to race or not. Like when you put him up there, and I think, the fact of Tia and Matt training together.
Yes, that's
that
exactly
rubs
what I was
off.
about to
It's
talk
like,
about.
hey, guess what? It doesn't matter if you're in first place. It doesn't matter if you're 100 points ahead. Crush the field, and then you can celebrate afterwards. Don't take it easier. Don't not push yourself because of whatever.
Yeah.
That warrior attitude, like that's the way it's supposed to be. Like I love to see that. And I mean the very unique thing about Tia, I mean we're actually the last probably this year and last year we're seeing a lot more of this of Matt too, is you put them on the field and they will eat people's faces off.
Mm-hmm.
You take them off the field, and all of a sudden Tia's doing TikTok dances and being super silly and goofy, and Matt's shooting guns and drinking coffee and making food with Sammy. And the fact that there is that bipolar type of personality is super cool. I mean, they're really human, cool. But the second you say go, they are vicious warriors.
So much fun to watch. So much fun to watch. So overall, Tia Claire Toomey wins in dominating fashion. 630 total points. Now, the one thing I did like about another piece of this is I enjoyed the scoring system. Because even though it was like 100 down to whatever, there was an even drop.
Yeah.
So there was no reward for getting first, as opposed to like that's supposed to give you anything extra. So they started at 100 and they dropped 5 all the way down. So it was even across the board, which I really liked.
Totally.
Tia wins at 630. Sarah Sigmund's daughter gets second at 555. And then Cara Saunders gets third. And again, what she did in the environment that she had to work in was amazing. Absolutely incredible. So it's really cool to see where she's at. On the men's side, Bellner just crushed everyone. Like it wasn't even close. He gets 630. BKG and Noah Olson tie at 555. Awesome. So Noah squeaks up into the top 3 after his performance in the final event. But BKG wins the tiebreaker because he'd won an event previous to that. And that was it. But like overall, when I saw the programming coming in, I really, really liked it. And I touched on this talking about the final event, where I said nothing was cute, nothing was sexy, and nothing was over-programmed. I loved that because then it forced the athletes to compete at a different level in terms of like, hey, look, there's all this high skill stuff and handstand walking over these obstacles and legless rope climbs. And I'm good at that. So my skills are going to, and skills are important. It's part of it. But to do that in 6 events, to have this overall test, and to have it at a level that everybody could be good at it, I think dictated the intensity of the entire competition. That made it really fun to watch, because I feel like anyone at any time, because they're like, who are your 2 in this heat? I'm like, I can't really tell you, right? Because I feel like everyone has a shot,
right?
So I think the programming lended that type of scope for a lot of these athletes to compete at a high level across the board.
Yeah, I think, again, looking at all the pieces, I think it was, Chris and Josh did a great job of putting this together and picking out what the event should be. If it was me, the only thing I would say is have a longer event in there so you can have a little bit more. Like the chipper, the 20-minute cap, but nobody was really, very few of the people were really there. The ones that were really being tested for like the top piece, because again, this is supposed to be a qualifier for the games. At least that's how, it was really set up to that. So we want to make sure that like the test is appropriate for that. Granted, based on the setup that they had, understanding how everyone's in their box, and we need to make it to where it can look a certain way, and we can do all that, and those sort of limitations that were in there, they did a great job. It was a great programmed event.
The events were fun to watch.
Fun to watch, fun to do, a quick weekend. And
2
even
heats
with
of
that,
everything was nice.
An amazing test. They did a great job. They really did.
So, hey, I'm giving 2 thumbs up. Josh Bridges, Chris Spieler.
Boom.
Way to go.
Strong work,
that
guys.
That was a lot of fun to do. And, that's our little assessment of the 2020 Rogue Invitational. What's kind of fun now is we got some things coming down up on the horizon, which I think is fun. We got the Mayhem Madness qualifiers and some Masters events that are going to be taking place. So, we'll still be doing our series for the CrossFit Games, but it's kind of fun to see some new things coming out on the horizon.
Oh, man. Got to have some stuff being thrown in there. My goodness. It's about time. Bring it back already. Please. Bring it back already.
Bring some normalcy back to this world of CrossFit and programming. All right, Bill, thank you.
Thanks, buddy.
And thank everyone else for listening. That will do it for our analysis of the 2020 Rogue Invitational.